JPMorgan CEO Jamie Dimon is speaking out on the market meltdown. Dimon says tariff policy issues need to be resolved quickly, and he warns against a potentially disastrous fragmentation of America's long-term economic alliances. We're joined now by Bloomberg's chief Wall Street correspondent, Natarajan. He talks about this geopolitics, the tariff threats, all adding to mounting pressures. You have Jamie Dimon himself making that potential recession call. JPMorgan's own earnings out this week. How much is Wall Street experiencing the pain that Dimon is talking about?
I think they're experiencing the pain not so much as what's happened in the last few days, but they're really worried about what lies ahead of them in the next few quarters. That is the big issue here. And you can be rest assured, like, everyone's looking forward to Jamie Dimon's annual letter. He probably wrote most of these 60 pages well ahead of the tariff announcement, but a lot of changes were made in the last couple of days, and that's evident in his tariff commentary. By Jamie Dimon's standards, I will say this was fairly muted. Still, he does make the important point that the longer that this lasts, the negative reaction and the negative effects will accumulate. You will have a cumulative effect, and that will affect the broader economy. That will affect the country broadly, and most certainly the bank he runs and the rest of the banking sector.
I just want to point out we're looking now at a 4 1/3% drop in the S&P 500. So the Dow Jones Industrial Average is down 1,540 points. This market decline continues. At what point does Jamie Dimon come out and, show some real spine, re the Trump administration? Because you're right, his message was fairly measured, and he's not known for mincing his words.
Look, this is not the first act of, if you want to call it, craziness that we've seen in this administration in the last 2 months, right? And if you're talking about corporate leaders willing to come out and say publicly what they've been telling us privately, what they've been telling each other privately, you're not really seeing any signs of that happening. Whether you're talking about a tariff issue and you're saying when money starts to bite, you certainly expect a lot of these people to be more forthright. You've certainly seen that, especially with someone like a Bill Ackman. Look at his tweets going into the weekend and look at his tweets starting 6 p.m. last night. Big change in tone. And perhaps that reflection will be seen more broadly. And as you see more and more people willing to take it forward, willing to amp up their rhetoric on this, more people will come forward. But to realistically expect these corporate leaders to go out there and say they wholeheartedly disagree with this administration's moves and to express that in such a clear and forthright manner is perhaps still a bit of a reach.
Yeah, and we have Bill Ackman's tweet, his post on X starting that last night. You mentioned 6 p.m. That's, of course, when futures opened, and we saw that big drawdown. So he also called for sort of a pause heading into the April 9th tariff implementation. I don't know if that will happen, but it's interesting, Shri. I mean, you just think about where we were heading into inauguration. Of course, we had Bessent set up as Treasury Secretary, and there was this idea that, he was going to be in the adult in the room. He had a lot of Wall Street connections. I imagine a lot of the sort of folks that you speak to, those C-suites type people and the bankers that you speak to, are trying to get on the phone with Scott Bessent and figure out what's going on.
They're certainly trying. If they can't get on the phone with him, they've certainly been texting him quite a bit. Not clear if it's just one-way channel. It does feel like that. It doesn't seem like Bessent is necessarily engaging with them. But part of that could also be, as some of our reporting shows over the weekend, that Bessent is not really one of the critical players as we navigate this period right now. As we navigate the tariff policy, it doesn't seem like he's a principal in the room. He's been playing a bit of a second fiddle, and that was evident in some of his comments to Anne-Marie last week, right after Trump's initial tariff announcements.